This is the Hops Gnarly Shed Brewery build where I'm ditching the home brewery of my dreams and moving into this. Now there's a lot of work ahead, but I'm not quitting until we've built an even better brewery than the last one. Now, let's get to work. Okay, so this is the new space. It's 8 feet wide and about 13 feet long. It's wired with a single 110 volt circuit and it's plumbed with a natural gas powered heater. The previous owner of the space was an old school badass handyman woodworker who spent a lot of time tinkering out here and making it into what it is today. Now, that legacy gets to stay, but pretty much everything else needs to go because I've got high hopes for this space. Top of the list, I need to be able to make great beer in here. That means everything from milling grains to pouring pints, and I'm really not willing to compromise on quality. I also need to be able to work in here. I work from home, and this space will not only be my home brewery, but it will also be my home office. And it goes without saying, but I also need to be able to make these videos in here. That means it needs to look nice, and I need some extra space to store my camera gear. Now it's a short list, but a tall order for a tiny little shed, and time's a ticking. The first thing I need to do is clear the space. We were able to get quite a bit cleared out, but we're interrupted by the electricians who are replacing the entire electric panel and also adding a new 240 volt circuit to the brewery. Once I got all the pegboard off the walls, I took a look at the existing insulation and it looks like it'll be fine to keep. Insulation is something I didn't have in the last brewery and I'm really looking forward to having this as an upgrade. Now, it's an absolute shit show in here after pulling everything off the walls, so it's time to fix that and get ready for the next step in the process. I swept the floor, cleaned the walls, and recruited some help to patch the walls. Now it's time to paint the lower half of the walls. This Wagner paint gun made quick work of this little space, and it was actually pretty fun to use. Not only did I use it to paint the walls, but I also used it on the door and everything worked out pretty well. Next up is the wood paneling. This is the same birch plywood paneling that I used in my last brewery build, and I thought it would contrast well with the black and also visually tie this new space with my older videos. Doing this by myself was not ideal, but once you get the first couple nails in, it gets a lot easier. Now, I'm certainly not a carpenter, but I was able to make everything fit pretty well. To add a little more polish and cover any remaining gaps, I used some 1x2 common board as trim. I would just measure the spot, transfer that to the 1x2, make the cut, and then nail it in place. And I did that everywhere there was any kind of gap. Soon enough, I was ready to clean up and move on to the next step. Time to turn my attention to the floors. At some point, I'm pretty sure these floors are going to get wet, so before I install the flooring, I'm adding some waterproof sealant to protect this subfloor. It's more or less a paint, so I just dump some out and roll it on. And once it was dry and cured, I installed some cheap laminate vinyl plank that matches the wall panels. All in all, it took me almost exactly 1 month to go from this to this, and now we're officially ready to move in. This is when I hit a big problem. The more I moved in, the more I started to think this isn't gonna work. If I have any chance of cramming everything into this tiny space, I need to focus on efficiency. For small things like these BREWTOOLS fittings, I need to find a way to pack them in tight but also stay super accessible so they find their way back to where they belong after I'm done using them. In this case, I ended up repurposing an old tackle case. I cleaned it up, dried it out, and it's a perfect fit. I can even add these little separators where needed to stay extra organized. And when I pop it in my rolling toolbox, here's the result. Not bad at all. I also needed to find a solution for my tri-clamps and gaskets. These plastic pegboards and matching baskets were the perfect solution. Hanging them up was a breeze, and I made sure to line everything up with some studs to bear the weight. Every box I emptied started to free up space, and I kept connecting the dots. My old milling cart worked well in my last brewery, but in this little shed, I needed to find a way to contain the dust, and I came up with an idea. I took an old IKEA cabinet and prepped it to drill a hole right through the top of it. This hole needed to be just large enough to accept my Maltzilla grain mill, which I then mounted to the top of the cabinet, put the door back on, popped a bucket inside, and boom, good to go. After even more organizing, cleaning, and a few more little projects, I finally reached a pretty good place, and I'm ready to give you the first official tour of the new Hops Gnarly home brewery. Walking in the door, the first thing you see is my single tap kegerator. This thing recently had some serious issues, and it's in desperate need of attention. But it's in close proximity to some glassware, and this is a fine starting point. On the opposite wall is another refrigerator where I'll be storing some ingredients. So you can see I have some yeast in here, some hop oil, hop hash, and a bunch of other stuff like that. It's a pretty tight entryway here, but it actually works pretty well. I'll also be using this space to mill my grains. I have 7-gallon bins down here for base grains, a scale on top of that, smaller bins above the kegerator, and of course my Maltzilla grain mill in the corner. Everything's in arm's reach when I need to mill some grains. And this space will double as my packaging station with my can seamer over here, a bunch of supplies in the drawers, and I can pull beer from the kegs in the kegerator. Now, let's move past the entryway and into the main space. This station here is my standing desk where I'll do my work and edit my videos. I have my computer, a monitor, a view of the TV, and plenty of storage for camera gear and other nonsense like this magic 8-ball. Flipping around, this is where the real magic happens. All my BREWTOOLS accessories are within reach, some more organized than others. And this shelving unit not only acts as a brew stand, but it also gives me tons of storage all around the brew space. And as I come around from the chiller, we go right into the fermentation station. Tanks, barrels, glycol chiller, and everything I need to ferment great beer. Above that is even more storage for stuff like cleaning supplies and towels. And that reminds me, I almost forgot, this shelf above the window holds things like my pH metering gear, Whirlfloc tablets, and water additions. Like I said about the kegerator, all of this is a starting point for the new Hops Gnarly brewery. There's still plenty of things I want to change and add all around the brewery, but this is a great place to start, and I'm stoked to have all that work behind me. Over the next few videos, we'll be knocking things off the to-do list. At the top of that list is the kegerator. I'll be changing it from a single tap to 3 taps with new lines, Nuka taps, and all the fixings. I also need to sort out my fermentation temperature control setup because I have a new fermenter in the brewery, and that new tank pushes me over the capabilities of my current glycol chiller. My packaging station is also in need of some attention. I've been using a beer gun to fill cans, and that's really just not cutting it. I also have been really wanting to figure out how to filter my own RO water. I might need a floor drain. The list goes on and on. There's so much I want to do. I don't know if this list is ever going to end. And if you have any ideas for this new space, I want to hear them. Let me know in the comments what you think I should do, and we'll make this the best damn shed brewery ever made. My name's Dan. This is Hops Gnarly. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'll see you again soon.